Welcome to Beyond the Red Dot, the show where I get to talk to TEDx speakers who have been on the world's most influential stage and to hear how bringing that talk to the stage helped them to push their idea we're spreading all around the world. I'm so lucky today that my guest is Dr. Riley Moynes, who appeared on the TEDxSurrey stage a couple of years ago and whose talk has been seen millions and millions of times. Now, I will call you doctor just now to get it out of the way. But Riley,
Yeah,
tell me
right.
something. For a talk about retirement, you don't seem to have slowed down. What is the mission? What are you carrying out to the world with your TEDx talk and the book that you put out?
Well, Tim, I guess what I'm doing is to try to help other people figure things out in a way that I had to kind of figure it out by myself. Um, I'm someone who learns better if I can see a framework. And I didn't have a framework to deal with the changes and the challenges that I experienced when I, to use the term loosely, I retired or I stepped back from what I had been doing for a number of years. And so for me, I was discombobulated for a reasonable period of time when I stepped back, and it bothered me because again, there was no framework that I could use to try to make sense of it all. So I decided that I would try to put together a framework that would, first of all, perhaps be helpful to me primarily, and then to if possible, be helpful to others. So I checked the research that had been done on retirement planning, and of course, it was the predictable stuff, the investments, the estate planning, the powers of attorney, all of that kind of stuff, critically important stuff, just not what I was looking for. And so I decided that then I had to go and talk to people who I had been told had figured out retirement, whatever that means. And so I started with a group of about a dozen or so folks that volunteered to speak to me. I asked a series of questions. One thing led to another. They said, "Oh, you should talk to so and so. They've got it all figured out." And so about 3 years later, I had this massive amount of information that I had then to try to make sense of. And that's how the framework kind of evolved. And I'm very gratified that it seems to have been able to be of help to lots of other people as well.
Yeah, I know you put together your talk is very simply titled The Four Phases of Retirement. And in there, though, is so much impressive information. Specifically, I think it's so valuable for everyone who might be watching your TEDx talk. And I give this talk out to so many of my friends. As I'm getting older, I'm thinking about, what will the future look like? And I want my friends to think about the same thing. And the vitally important part is that what you highlight is that retirement is, and I'm paraphrasing in my own way, is really just a transition into the next thing that you're doing. It's not about just finding a place to sit down and do nothing. As humans, that would kind
Absolutely.
of destroy us, wouldn't it? So you've been able to lead some people, and specifically, you found a couple of platforms. You've written a book, but also a TEDx platform. What sort of led you to either pursue or consider the TEDx stage as a place to share this idea?
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, when I was invited to consider it, I was knowledgeable about the TED brand, and I was impressed by that brand. And to me, it represented a very high level of presentation, and I was intrigued to see whether I could match that, and to uh, the challenge of becoming an elite speaker. I had done a fair amount of speaking. I thought I was reasonably good at it, but I also had a sense that this would really be a challenge to stretch me and to make me improve in a number of different areas. So that's why I decided that I would give it a try. I thought that the exercise itself would be really valuable to me and my work. And even if I wasn't successful, I would still have benefited by going through the process.
So tell me that process, was it more than you had expected? And did you find some things from it that you had not necessarily expected to get out of it or to gain?
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was a very, very demanding process. For me, it extended over 2 years because we had, COVID challenges. And although I had qualified to be a speaker at TEDxSurrey in 2021, I wasn't able to travel to British Columbia because of travel restrictions that were involved with COVID. So I had to go through the entire process again in 2022. They gave me a little bit of a head start, but frankly, not a whole lot. And so I went through the whole thing again, hours and hours, I would say hundreds of hours of preparation, mostly on Zoom. I had some wonderful, wonderful coaching. I had they were able to provide a lot of the people who were involved with the Surrey TEDx had been previously involved with a Toastmasters, and so they were very professional, very
Mm.
knowledgeable. I was given a coach to help me with my introduction. I was given a coach to help me with my conclusion. I was given even a coach to help me with some of the humor that had to be a part of it. And all of these things stretched me a lot. And of course, to do it in about 12 minutes when ordinarily my workshops are about an hour. And of course, I felt that everything in the workshop was critically important and nothing could be sacrificed. But it's interesting how it can be over time when you're forced to do it. And so we got it down to 12 minutes, and I practiced and practiced and practiced and had wonderful coaching. And the result has been very, very gratifying.
And I would imagine, and you seem like a rather humble person, but uh, I would imagine that doing all that work and seeing what the result is, which is a world-class talk that feels effortless. It feels like you're just talking to a friend. It's
Yeah.
funny, it's conversational. Um, can you take pride in how much work you put into that and what came out of it afterwards?
Oh, absolutely. I take tremendous pride in having delivered a TEDx talk at the highest level that I could ever have done. And I attribute it all to, well, A, the hard work, and B, the excellent coaching, the practicing. It's true. One of the things that they demand is that it has to appear to be extemporaneous. It cannot appear to be in any way scripted, and they were very helpful to me in achieving that. And certainly the importance that they attach to including stories that people always seem to love, the humor, and just the whole thing came out exactly the way I would have hoped. People have asked me, "Do you have another TEDx talk in you?" I do not. I could not put forth the effort that I did, and I would never have. I just couldn't believe that I would be able to deliver another one at that level. It was the very best that I could do, and I'm very gratified at the response. We've now been viewed over 5 million times, which is just absolutely, well, as I say, it's gratifying. And it also speaks, of course, I think, to the importance of the topic worldwide, retirement. And that's an element, if I could just say, Tim, that, when people are thinking about doing that kind of talk, I think it's important that the topic be one that is widely deemed important. It can't be too narrow. And in fact, everyone, I guess, or most people kind of face retirement at some point. So that, I think, partly explains the interest in it, that everyone's going through that. And so it was a very widely popular topic, fortunately for me.
That's one of the things that I took out of it when I watched your talk for the very first time, and I've seen it a number of times since, and not just because I was going to have you as a guest on the podcast, was because it almost feels like you're reporting from a land I haven't gotten to yet. You're saying, hey, I've been there. I had the
Uh-huh.
experience. I know what this feels like. And as you talk through those four phases, you're talking about, part or all of a phase or two of that is a pretty rough phase to get through what is my purpose? What am I doing? Finding new purpose. But then you describe a final phase that's actually quite exhilarating. Sounds like a really exciting place to get to. And so I
Uh-huh.
looked at that and thought, here's this guy who has seen what's on the other side of this hill or this mountain, and he's willing to report back and tell us what to look out for, where the mines are, so to speak, or the booby traps. I
Yeah.
I, I wonder too. You you were a professor, I believe, at the University of Toronto and elsewhere. You've written a number of books and you've written things and done things in the past. How much ego did you have to set aside as you went through this process? You know, you get selected to be a speaker, they want you there, but then they start telling you all the things you've got to change and do differently. How important it is as a speaker to lose the ego and be willing to take that
Yeah.
criticism?
It's critically important. As I say, they uh, at first they wanted us to write our script, and we could use I think it was maybe 2,400 words. And then, that was fine. Now do it again at 1,800 words. That's great. Now do it again at 1,500 words. Now do it again it got down to 1,200 words, like cut in half. And yeah, you do have to set aside your ego. You have to trust the expertise of the folks who are guiding you, and you have to believe that they know better than you about this area. I knew better about some other areas, but they knew better about this area, and they were invaluably helpful to me. Absolutely invaluably helpful to me.
You got on that stage, and from what I see from the video that I get to watch, you look so at home and comfortable. Were you comfortable by the point that you took the stage on the day and were performing something that you had practiced so many times?
Um, yes and no. The no part is that we did a dress rehearsal on the Thursday preceding the Saturday. And during that dress rehearsal, it was the first time that I had been on the stage that we were going to be using on the day. I'd come traveled from Toronto to Vancouver, and everything that I had done up until that time had been on Zoom and in my den kind of thing. So this was an entirely new situation for me. 1,000 seats or 1,200 seats in the Bell Center, and elevated stage and all of that kind of stuff. And what happened to me on that day was that I forgot a line, and I was well. They had said, if you forget a line, stand there, don't react, it will come to you. And it seemed like an eternity before it came to me. It was probably less than a second or two, but it seemed like an eternity. And I carried that back with me to my hotel,
Mm.
wondering, is it possible that that could happen again on Saturday? And so when I stepped onto the stage on Saturday, I had confidence in the sense that I had done the work, but I also knew that in the back of my mind that 2 days ago I had forgotten a line, and could that possibly happen again? It did not. I'm happy to report it did not. But was I comfortable? Semi.
I assume the minute you finished that you got real comfortable.
Oh, I felt like the world, like the weight of the world had been lifted from from my shoulders. I had a wonderful response, standing ovation, which of course is very gratifying, and I thought, frankly, well earned. So yes, it was a wonderful feeling, and the relief of all that pent up pressure over, for me, 2 years, which is a longer time than
Yeah.
normal. And it was very gratifying. And it was also very gratifying to see. I mean, it took about 3 months. I think there were 7 cameras that were used during the actual performance, and it took several months for them to edit it and to combine various shots and angles and so on. And I was very, very pleased as well, of course, with the final result, because I think they did a masterful job of presenting it in the very best way that they possibly could have.
You know, and not just that, but then the video gets out there and all the people who weren't in the room start to get to see it. So of course, you've got over 1,000 people in the room seeing it, but then it goes out
Yeah,
and gets shared and shared. Talk to me a little bit
yeah,
about the impact of sharing your idea on this um, truly influential stage. What has that
yeah.
been like, and how far has it reached even farther than you had imagined it could?
Well, Certainly, the 1,000 people who are in attendance are generally a very supportive audience. There's no question about that. But I mean, the main impact is going to come not from that one presentation, but rather, as you say, from when the video is released on YouTube and actually, I think they use the term elevated to the main TED stage. So my talk was elevated to the main TED stage with a slight change of title, but so again, it's out there, and you have no idea what the response is going to be. It could sink like a stone, and you just have no idea. You're hopeful, of course, but we were just overwhelmed at the response out of the gate. That there were 10,000 views a day, and it was overwhelming. I had not set any, number that you hoped, number of views that I hoped for. I think I was too wise to do that. But over the last 2 or 3 years, as I say, obviously the numbers have been declining on a daily basis, but still the numbers are about 2,000 views a day, which again just boggles my mind. But it speaks to I think the quality of the presentation that I was able to present, and more importantly, I think the topic itself. So I sort of stopped counting now that we've reached 5 million. It had never occurred to me that it would ever get that far. Who knows how far it will go? And it doesn't really matter to me anymore. What I know is that I did the very best job that I could do. I know that it has resonated with millions of people around the world. I've had hundreds of thousands of comments and suggestions or observations. So I know it's had an impact, and it has certainly done, I think, more than I could ever have hoped that it would do.
Now, was being a TEDx speaker part of some, master marketing plan? Was this an opportunity? And regardless of that, how have you used this to catapult to, other success in sharing your life's work with
Yeah.
work with other people?
Well, it wasn't part of a master plan. I would never. No, it just wasn't part of a master plan. An opportunity was presented. I seized the opportunity, and I'm pleased and happy that I did that. Um, as you no doubt are aware, but many people aren't aware, there is no monetary payment for doing a TED talk or at least a TEDx talk. And so the benefits that I've received have been a large number of speaking engagements and a considerable number of book sales, net profits from which I am happy to be able to donate to a charity that I support. So I've been able to benefit that charity. I've been able to see a number of interesting sites across North America through invitation as a result of it, and that's been a very gratifying professional experience as well.
So what do you hope to do with the with this sort of notoriety, so to speak, but also with the people coming to you? Another person I interviewed on the podcast talked how his TEDx talk meant that he wasn't having to push as much. He was starting to get pulled by people. He wasn't having to try to push doors open. They were pulling him into those doors. So you're getting pulled by people, especially with,
Yes.
a couple thousand people a day being discovering for themselves your YouTube video. What opportunities have you had? Or are you still looking forward to be able to keep going as you're being pulled by people?
Well, I am being pulled, and that's very gratifying because the people who are reaching out are people who have either seen the TEDx talk or they've seen the live presentation that I've done as a result of that. I just had a call yesterday from a gentleman who had a couple of years ago. I had been in Boston and he had seen the presentation, and he decided that he would like to make that more widely available. So that's the kind of thing that I'm enjoying right now. People are pulling rather than my pushing. and that's nice. I'm happy to respond to those sorts of requests when they come. But I do sense that I'm probably not going to be doing as much traveling over the next year or so as I have been in the past, and that's fine as well. I'll continue to do other voluntary things that I enjoy doing, and it was a phase. It was a part of my life. It was a very interesting and challenging part of my life. I've enjoyed it tremendously, but I recognize that there's ebb and flow, and it'll begin to tail off.
So, well, I'm glad that you let me pull you to a podcast. So, thanks for your time, of course. The
Okay.
other thing that's interesting, and you talk about in your talk, and I think that you're really living it, which is so fantastic. You know, is sort of recognizing that there are phases that you get opportunities, you discover new things. So,
Mhm.
tell me, what are you discovering for the future? What are you into now? I obviously you said you're not traveling as much, but I can't imagine you sitting on your
Yeah.
hands or just sitting in a recliner and waiting around for other things. So what are you up to?
No, no, I'm not doing that. As I say, I do a couple of volunteer things throughout the week. I On Friday mornings, I show up at our wonderfully brand new, magnificently large hospital, and I'm part of what we call the welcome team. And so my job is to well, first of all, I discovered that there are three types of people who come into the hospital. There are people like me who wear their lanyard and their name tag on it, so they're either volunteers or staff. They don't need my help. There are folks who come into the hospital and they make a beeline for where they're going. They've been there lots of times before. They don't need my help. But there's a very large third group who come into the hospital and who just look lost. And we know that no one goes to the hospital for the fun of it. Those people are
Yeah,
there probably under some duress, either for a
yeah,
procedure that they're going to have or visit someone who is ill. And so my job is to take those people and if at all possible, and it is 90% of the time, to actually take them to the part of the hospital where they need to go and not give them directions. And when I say to them, let me take you there, I can just see the relief of stress,
mm.
and they sort of sag, and they're so appreciative and so grateful that that's going to happen, and that gives me tremendous pleasure. And I also, last Friday, I put over 12,000 steps on my Fitbit, so that's what's in it for me as well.
You know,
That's
it,
one of
it
the
seems it seems like at least in this part of your life, you were out there as a Sherpa, a guide. You're leading people. You're helping us to understand retirement, what it's going to look like. You've been there. You're leading us. You've been at the hospital. You're leading people. You've been on the TEDx stage. In this podcast, you've been able to help lead some people on what they could expect. So knowing that, is there anything that I have people that are going to watch this podcast who say, I really think that I have a great idea that needs to be shared with the world. I think a TEDx stage is the right place for me to do it. It has a great opportunity as this very prestigious, influential stage to get ideas spread out there. Is there a
yeah.
piece of advice you can give them about any part of it? Maybe it's not how to get a TEDx talk, but how to prepare for one, or what to do. What would you think is the most important thing from your experience that you would want to make sure people know?
I think it's really critically important, Tim, that people understand that the topic that they're proposing must must be as widely applicable as possible. I think a very narrow kind of a niche sort of thing probably is not going to be successful. You want to speak to as many potential clients or customers or viewers as you possibly can. And so I think in my case, almost everyone's going to be facing retirement of some sort at some time. And so I believe has been a significant component of the success that my TEDx talk has had. It's something that speaks to everybody. And so that would be my piece of advice. I must say I wasn't aware of that when I started this process, but I've certainly become aware of the fact that it needs to be as widely applicable as possible. And I would say also that if you if you do have a topic that is widely applicable and you are successful, and assuming you have good coaching, but even if you don't, it's critically important, in my view, to use personal stories that people relate to that. And it's also critically important, I believe, that there has to be an element of humor in your presentation. It can't be deadly, dull, serious. It's got to be somewhat lighter. It's got to be humorous, and there have to be stories. And overall, a topic that is widely applicable. Those would be the three elements that I have discovered are critical to a TEDx talk success.
So the other thing, and I haven't mentioned this to you at all before. We did have a conversation beforehand just to get on the same page. I didn't mention this, but I think it's an interesting question. You know, you spoke on that TEDx Surrey stage, but not by yourself. You know, you gave your talk, but you were there with a number of other speakers. Um,
Yes.
did you develop any connections or friendships to the other speakers? You all sort of went through a very similar boot camp together, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, we did, but my situation was again a little different from most of the others in that I was in the Toronto area. They were otherwise they were all either in the Vancouver or Vancouver Island area. So while they had an opportunity to meet sometimes during the preparation, I was not able to do that until I arrived, just a few days before the presentation. So to the extent that it was possible, I got to know some of them. But the truth is that we were all pretty much focused on doing the very
Yeah.
best that we could during our time, and so it was pretty tense. I think for everyone those few days leading up. And so to the extent that in some cases that happens, it didn't really happen to that degree in my case.
Did you find any limitations to having done most of your discussions and coaching from a digital platform rather than being able to do it in person?
Well, I think it would have pardon me, it would have been easier if if I'd been able to visit and to be part of that group. I'm sure that would have made things easier. And again, I was kind of given this double whammy where I wasn't able to travel after having done all the work that we had done for the first time around. So yeah, there were real limitations to that. But I mean, thankfully, Zoom existed because otherwise it wouldn't have been possible at all for me. So it was a limitation, yes, but it wasn't one that couldn't be overcome.
Well, the result speaks for itself. The talk is so valuable. It's a fantastic uh, piece for you to leave for people, even if you don't travel as much and don't go see people as much. They have this amazing resource. You've also written a
Yeah.
book about that. I think you give workshops and other things. I mean, you're still busy with that, helping people. I really appreciate you being here on the show Beyond the Red Dot so that we can sort of see what it's like to have been a TEDx speaker and then where you can go with that and take with that. Any last words you would give just general people about retirement as they start thinking about it? They watch your video. Anything you
Yeah.
left out that you want to make sure that they hear?
Well, I would say that people should aspire to phase four. That's the most gratifying, satisfying of the four phases. And I would say that in order to get there, one needs to be very much aware of what their strengths are, what are the things that they love to do that have led to past successes for them, and that those things, which I call unique ability, they will allow one to not retire, but to rewire. And they will be able to use those strengths, those passions, things that have led to success in the past. And by applying them, perhaps in an entirely different aspect of their lives, they will allow them to rewire and to reach phase four, which is the most satisfying and gratifying of the four phases.
Well, I know you've had a lot of titles in your lifetime, Doctor, Mr. Moynes, Riley. I'm very proud that I can add my friend to the list. So thank you so much for joining me on this talk. And please, folks, as you enjoy this talk, remember you've got to go watch his video. So I will link it in the description for this talk. And think about what Dr. Riley Moynes says to you about retirement, that your goal is really to rewire yourself to keep doing amazing things, which is one thing he's doing. Riley, thanks for joining me today.
To my absolute pleasure. Thank you.